This is Suburban On Air and Cohen in the City. Here is Mike Cohen.
Dick Pound was the first president of the World Anti-Doping Agency and remains a senior active member of the IOC.
The longest-serving member of the International Olympic Committee, founding president of the World Anti-Doping Agency, and a former Olympic athlete himself.
In his long career in the IOC, he made the world aware. This is a fight about the minds of people.
I mean, he had to dig the trenches and to move things forward, and he managed to, get the rule harmonized.
Well, the Office for Science and Society of McGill University will present the 2023 Trottier Symposium. On the theme is the use and abuse of science in the world of sport, September 13th and 14th. And during those 2 days, Dick Pound, founding president of the World Doping Agency, among others, will join Dr. Joe Schwartz in the symposiums, in the panels. And I'm so fortunate to have you with me today. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, looking forward to it.
Well, great to have you. I'm going to get right to the start. Well, let's start off with your upcoming appearance with McGill, of course, close to your heart. You're the chancellor. You attended school there. You have such a history. So tell me, what can we expect from this series of talks you're going to give in September?
Well, Joe Schwartz, as you know, is a great myth buster and somebody who can make science and some of the issues there, come alive for the general public, and so I think it'll be fun. He's put together some good people to contribute to it all. So no, I think it'll be good. And my particular episode is going to be kind of a one-on-one, Moyes Hall with just between Joe and myself, and to talk about doping. I mean, that's one of the abuses of science in the field of sport. There are lots of really good things about science, in terms of conditioning and all that sort of stuff, compared to when I was swimming 60 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a whole new level of applied science, good dieting, making sure you warm up properly before you do severe effort and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of good advances in sport, as you can see from performances in almost every sport that one can watch. So I think it should be fun.
Okay, terrific. Well, I'm sure people are looking forward to that. So lots to talk to you about. First of all, can you bring us back to how did the anti-doping agency start? I mean, it started here in Montreal by you. How did that all happen?
Well, it grew out of the Tour de France in cycling in 1998.
Right.
And there was a team in among the teams there called Festina, and members of the team and the entourage were discovered by the French police to be in possession of industrial quantities of doping stuff, and they were sort of arrested by the French police. And all of a sudden, sort of the cycling world woke up to the fact that it had a real problem that it had never acknowledged, and the IOC president at the time gave a very unfortunate interview to the Spanish media. It was one of these things, where you say you're from La Vanguardia or El País in Spain, and you get a chance to spend a day with Juan Antonio Samaranch, president of the IOC, and see how he runs the world of sport. And so he's sitting there in the room, the night watching television, and then the Festina scandal is starting to bubble up, and the president says, for me, that's not doping. Doping is only if you can prove that it's dangerous to the health of the athletes, which is a view. It's not one I share, but that's Anyway, but it was a 180 from what he was saying publicly. And so all of a sudden, this guy who's not under the reporter is not, under any instructions not to print things without his approval. The headline the next day is IOC soft on doping, that sort of thing. And there was a huge uproar around the world, and enough so that he called an emergency meeting of the IOC executive board, on which I was then a member.
Yeah.
And so we get there and he says, well, now what are we going to do about this? And we're all sort of looking at each other and say, we're only here because you're blabbing.
Right.
Anyway, but we got past that, and my perspective on it was that the problem is that nobody trusts anybody. You can't trust cycling to make sure its riders are clean. You can't trust countries, France, would name it, anybody in the Tour de France, to make sure their riders are clean. And the IOC is regarded as too weak to control the sports. So I said, I think what we need is an independent international agency charged with leading the fight against doping in sport. And that sort of resonated. And because no good deed goes unpunished, Sam said, fine, you do the organogram. And so I said, we actually have an organization already that meets most of these criteria in what's called the Court of Arbitration for Sport, where that governance model at the time was, an equal number of IOC members, international federation representatives, National Olympic Committee representatives, and athlete-centered representatives. So equal stuff. I said, now, adding doping to this, you need a couple of other blocks. One would be governments, because, we in the sport community, we know who the athletes are, who the coaches are, who the bad guys are, and all that sort of stuff. But we don't have any power to go into premises and seize evidence or compel the giving of. So we need governments for that. And then I said, you need some expertise. You need somebody from the pharma industry to tell what's going on, and you need some coaches. You need event organizers and stuff like that. So we put together 6 equal blocks, and then we said, now we have to call for an international conference, which we did. It was going to be in February of 1999, to bring all of the Olympic, all the international agencies, governments, and so on together to see whether we can make this thing fly. And we did, and the outcome of that, but not without a number of bumps along the road, but the outcome was the creation of WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, in November of 1999. And again, no good deed going unpunished. I was designated as the president of the thing.
Yeah. And there was some major stories that broke over the last couple of decades, but maybe one of the biggest ones, and you were not happy with how the Russians were handled by the Olympic Committee. I think you felt they were too soft when they were able to come back to I think it was the Olympics in Korea, and they were able to say athletes from Russia. Was that something that still bothers you today?
Yeah, no, I think we fumbled that ball, and I basically, I'm kind of offside from the the powers that be in the Olympic movement at that point, and that every once in a while you do get offside, and so that was unfortunate. But yes, I think the Russians were just giving the middle finger to the whole world,
which hasn't changed at all. And speaking of the Russians, and wearing your hat as the former president of the Canadian Olympic Committee and a high-ranking official with the International Olympic Committee, Russia. Did you ever meet Putin yourself? Did you ever have a meeting with him?
Oh, sure, several times.
What was he like?
He's very reserved. He's not a large physical person. He's a large presence. One of the fun things was the WADA Athletes Committee was chaired in the early days by a guy called Fetisov, hockey player from the
Yeah, sure.
Slava, call me Slava. And he said when Russia was bidding for the 2014 games, and we figured out awarding winter games in Guatemala, but anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's the price of moving around. And he said, "Well, you come, you've got to meet the president." And I said, "No, he's here. I have promised to support this bid because I think it's good. Have him meet with people that may not be convinced,
Right.
instead of wasting time with a vote you've already got."
Yeah.
No. He said, "You're gotta come." So anyway, we work our way up to the inner circle, and then Slava says to Mr. President, "I want you to meet my boss, Dick Pound." And Putin looked at him. He said, "I thought I was your boss."
And did he say that, by the way? Did he speak English?
His English is not bad.
Right.
Not bad.
We never
I mean,
see that.
he gave a lot of the no, he gave a lot of his presentation in English, but he was you're reading off of the cues,
Right.
teleprompter, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
no, it was not bad, and so I said, "I'm just his Montreal boss, you know."
I mean, I've a few people have told me who have met him. So turning the page with your Olympic experience, do you believe that they'll be allowed to compete in the next Summer Olympics, Russia?
My personal view is that if the conflict is still going on, and that's one of the reasons the IOC is waiting to see if that's still going on, I just don't see how it's possible, because
I don't see it either. I mean, he held off the invasion to do it right after the last Olympics. Like, he strategically planned it so that he was able to do the Winter Olympics. So he's because I'm told from many people that this guy really bothers him when his sports teams are affected by whenever he does something wrong, which seems to be very often.
Well, it's complicated, and kind of the notional center of the Olympic movement is actually in Europe. I mean,
Yeah.
50% of the athletes that participate are European. So
Yeah.
and they're very much opposed to Russia and Belarus taking part. So my guess is that you string it out as long as you possibly can, but then you have to your aspirational goals of having everybody there run headlong into political reality. And
maybe it's an
that's where we are
incentive.
now.
Maybe the Olympics could help end the war. Who knows? Maybe that's his ego is big enough, knowing that where he is in his life right now. So I think we all want to see that go away. In 2005, you were named Time Magazine's one of the 100 most influential people in the world. How did that feel to be considered number 100 in the whole world?
Well, I kind of thought maybe it was a slow year. Well, you don't. At least I don't do whatever I do for that reason, and it's an external assessment of what's going on in the world, and the Time folks put me on the list, which was very nice. But
yeah. Final question for you, and getting back to the main topic. All these years later, after the World Anti-Doping Agency was created, do you feel that drugs in sports is less of a problem these days, or has it gotten worse? Is it stable? Where are we at decades after that agency began?
Well, I think it's now out in the open. People are not afraid to talk about it and to deal with it, and we're getting much better at testing. In the Olympics, we keep the samples now for 10 years.
Wow.
10 years. So as you know, as more and more knowledge gets developed, you can go back and test samples that you took in a decade earlier, and
Right.
find things that you didn't know about.
Yeah.
So in a sense, there's some deterrent impact there, where you say to the athletes, listen, you may get out of town with your medal, but it ain't over until we've gone back and tested. So there, a
Yes.
lot of the cases that are coming forward right now are from previous Olympics,
Right.
going back to Sochi, for example.
That's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's the science is really good, and the ability to test. You've got a program called a whereabouts program, which is that every athlete in a registered testing pool has to disclose where he or she will be and be available for a 1 hour period during that day. And if you
Right.
don't, if you're not there when the testers come, it's a missed test. And if you miss 3 tests over the course of 18 months, that's the same as a positive test. So there are lots of ways where we're sharpening the focus, and you do a kind of a triage. You're not really too worried about the person who comes 300th in some event.
Yeah.
The real risk is in the top 10 or something like that. So they are generally tested much more often than somebody from a small country that is not going to figure in the medal
Right.
range.
Well, we're looking forward. It's going to be a great talk between you and Dr. Joe. Thanks for making the time, and good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Dick Pound has been my guest.